Good evening, everyone. I'd like to call the Committee of the Whole meeting of November 11, 2024 to order. My name is J.D. Patrieva, Counselor and Chair of the Planning and Economic Development Committee. In honor of it being Remembrance Day, I'll ask that we pause for a moment of silence to honor those who have fought and those who have sacrificed their lives. This day is a time to respect, reflect, and remember, paying tribute to those who have served and continue to serve our country. Thank you very much. I would like to begin this evening's meeting by reading a safety notice. In the event of an emergency, please evacuate council chambers to the nearest exit through the chamber doors and obey all instructions given, and if assistance is required, please see the Legislative Committee Coordinator. Tonight, it's Deanna, so Deanna will follow you out. Okay? Once you've evacuated the building, please gather in the front parking lot outside of Town Hall. Bless you. Bless you again. Please ensure your cell phone is on silent or turned off. And lastly, the Town of Lincoln Committee of the Whole meetings are posted on our YouTube channel. Closed captioning is available on all our videos by selecting the closed captioning button on the bottom right of the video. Members of the committee are in attendance in person and remotely this evening, with regrets from Councilor Reimer. We have staff in attendance in person and remotely. Additionally, we have a representative from the Niagara SPCA in attendance this evening. Are there any declarations of interest? Okay, I see none. Do members have any amendments to the order of the agenda for this evening? Okay. We have no statutory public meetings this evening. We are now considering the consent agenda inclusive of age-friendly and active community advisory committee minutes of October 3rd, 2024, and the Joint Fire Services Advisory Committee minutes of October 22nd, 2024. Would any members of committee like to remove an item from the consent agenda in order to discuss it? Okay, there being no further discussion, I have a motion moved by Councilor Michalak that all items listed under the heading of consent agenda for Monday, November 11th, 2024 be adopted as recommended. Age-friendly and active community advisory committee minutes of October 3rd, 2024, and the Joint Fire Services Advisory Committee minutes of October 22nd, 2024. I will now ask our Legislative Committee Coordinator to open the vote.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Chair. That vote is now open. And that vote is closed, and that carries. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, Deanna. Okay, so we will now begin the Planning and Economic Development agenda portion of tonight's meeting. We have one delegation for this evening. Please note that delegations have a maximum of 5 minutes to speak. Our delegation for this evening is Ciara Griffiths, Animal Services Officer, Niagara SPCA, regarding item 7.2.1, review of muzzle order appeal by John Fichtinger, PD 39-24.
Hello. I am here to move forward with the muzzle order pertaining to address of 4193 Eastdale Drive. Am I going through the process of my investigation for this purpose? Yes? Yes, okay. So on June 20th, our dispatch received a complaint stating that a dog walker was attacked while walking a dog for that time.
Could you just speak up a little louder?
Yeah.
There we go. Because I don't think the people online, they need to hear you too.
Okay, I'm sorry, I'm just a little tall.
That's okay.
Okay.
That's one of our turn that on. That's one of our inadequacies we need to fix is a moving microphone, but go
Yeah,
ahead.
this is perfect.
Okay.
Okay. This is good? Okay. So on June 20th, our dispatch had received a call complaint stating that there was a dog walker walking a dog past a house in the residence of Beamsville. The dog had attacked the dog that she was walking at the time. And then I had received that dispatch and I had contacted the victim at the time at 3:15 that same date. She stated that she saw wounds on the dog. I gave her my email address to have her statement of the event sent, as well as any pictures or any evidence at that time. She had also provided the dog owner's email address so I could contact them as well to pursue the matter further. I had then contacted the dog owner at the email given. She had sent me pictures from the vet, as well pictures she had took of her dog at that attack date, and just the vet bill basically stating what the vet had did at the time of the visit. On June 27th, I had arrived to the address which was mentioned, which was 4193 Eastdale Drive. At the time, I already knew the dog owner's name was Jana, so I had went to the residence and I had spoken to both occupants there, which at the time was Jana and her husband Sean, I believe. At the time, it was just Jana. She asked if I wanted to come into her home. I went into her home and we began talking about the incident that occurred. At the time, the male occupant, believed to be her husband, was stating that the onus should be on the dog walker for, in his opinion, stating that she was screaming at the dog approaching them, and that it had not helped in the situation. In order to maintain a black and white image of the incident, I had asked him if the dog had gotten off property. He stated yes. I had asked if his dog attacked the other dog. He stated yes. They also had mentioned that there was a camera on the side of their house, which they can view their property. However, it did not capture the attack or the incident, which again led me to believe that this attack happened off of property and not on their property. At the time, with the evidence that I had received with the wounds of the dog, the statement I had from the dog walker stating the attack, I had decided to issue a muzzle order towards the dog Jasmine. I went through the entirety of the package, listing all of the sections that were to be followed through the muzzle order process. I had also asked who the muzzle order should be directed towards, and they had indicated Jana herself should be on the muzzle order. Sorry, I'm just pulling up the muzzle order as well. So after I was going through the entire thing, I had asked if they had any questions. The time they didn't, we went out to the front of the residence because I had mentioned there needs to be a beware of dog sign on the property, which indicated also on the muzzle order. And then that's when we decided where to put the sign. They said that they wanted to keep it in plain view. At the time of my visit, they seemed very receptive to how I was how I was doing it, going through the muzzle order. They assured me that they didn't want this incident to happen again. At that time, after I issued the muzzle order, they stated they'd be putting the sign up, and I departed, and that was the last that I did.
Thank you very much, Sarah. Are there any questions for this delegation? Vice Chair Murray, please go ahead.
Presenter, thank you for being here today. I'm just not exactly sure of the process of the first muzzle order that I've had. Is it standard procedure, a dog attacks another dog, from what I was reading, without provocation, it's a muzzle order? There's no, next time you're going to get a muzzle order or anything like that. It's first one strike, you're out sort of a thing?
No, it's not. It's kind of based on your prior experience. You can do tickets. In my opinion, a ticket wouldn't have sufficed in this situation. Just to the dog's behavior during the attack. I had felt it would be community safety and best kind of practice would be to issue a muzzle order.
Thank you. And just to clarify, if I may, and a muzzle order is for the rest of that dog's life, if you're outside of the home, there's a muzzle on.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Sarah. So there being no further delegations for this item, I have a motion moved by Councillor Murray That committee receive and file for information the following delegation regarding the review of muzzle order appeal by John Fichtinger, Sierra Griffiths, Niagara SPCA. I will now ask our legislative committee coordinator to open the vote.
Thank you, Chair. That vote is now open. And that vote is closed, and that carries. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, Deanna. So we will now consider the associated report, item 7.2.1, PD 39-24, review of muzzle order appeal by John Fichtinger. The manager of municipal law enforcement will provide introductory comments. Mr. Barkway, please go ahead.
Good evening, and through you, Chair. Thank you. As we heard from the delegation this evening, we've also previously heard from Van Delft, who was the dog walker. We've heard from Wick, who is the victim dog owner, and we've heard from the appellant Fichtinger in respect to this matter. They've all provided some form of evidence about what has taken place. I can advise that upon further review, I can also confirm that there were two distinct bite wounds suffered by the victim dog in this matter as a result of the dog attack. And that's from within the vet records that were supplied. It is laid out within our animal control bylaw in regards to when a muzzle order would be issued for or a dangerous dog order. And the officer, or the investigating officer in this case, Sierra Griffiths, did follow that and made the determination based on the totality of the evidence that she'd collected that it supported issuing the muzzle order in this case. And one of the main factors is for community safety, which in this case was the appropriate method to go forward. It was suggested by Mr. Fichtinger that the information wasn't clear, but he was provided the opportunity to make his appeal, which is why we have been here for this evening and the previous session to have this appeal heard. Based on the review of all the information that I had gathered from this, it's my conclusion that of the two options available, which is either to rescind the order or to maintain the order, it's staff recommendation that it's to be maintained. While it's recognized that there are people willing to speak on behalf of the dog in question, Jasmine, as to her normal demeanor, the aggravating factor is that the displayed aggressiveness, which led to injury to the leash dog Shadow in this matter. It's evident that two persons at the home at the time with Jasmine were unable to control or retain control to avoid the attack and injury. This was done without provocation. And even by the evidence of Officer Griffiths, it's determined that this attack took not on the private property, but in public property. With this in mind and looking at the totality of the information gathered, staff recommend option one, which is to maintain the order, the current muzzle order, as it requires the owner to maintain responsibility for their dog Jasmine at all times and provides a layer of safety for the greater community to limit the possibility of repeated instances. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, Mr. Barkway. Do members of committee have any questions? Councillor Brunet, go ahead, please.
Thank you, Chair. Through you to Mr. Barkway. So I can't recall when we had the initial discussion, were these dogs, what were the age of these dogs?
Through you, Chair, I would have to just review some information. I can get you that answer in a couple minutes if you can bear with me.
Yeah, I'm just trying to recall if they were pups, what they were. You know, I understand we're talking about community safety. I completely concur. My wife and I have been dog owners for 40 years. I'm just struggling with the fact that it's either maintain or revoke. There's nothing in between. I don't understand why there's not a consideration that after a certain period of time, whether it's 5 years or 10 years, whatever the case may be, that maybe the owner has the ability to show that the dog has gone through proper training, et cetera, et cetera. That's why I'm asking the age of the dog. Yeah, I understand community safety is utmost here. I'm just surprised that there's nothing in between maintain or revoke. I'm wondering if maybe Mr. Barkway could make a comment with regards to that.
Through you, Chair. Thank you. First off, I can confirm from the records that the dog that did the attacking, Jasmine, was born in 2020, so it was approximately 4 years old at this time, not a puppy. I'm not sure the age of the other dog, unfortunately, but in regards to the extent of the muzzle order, this is not something just with the town of Lincoln. This is, muzzle orders are issued throughout the province, and this is what it is. It either remains in place or it's rescinded, but there are no alterations to the time frame.
Thank you, Councillor Bernay. Councillor Russell?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Through you to Mr. Barkway, just a quick question. Would it make a difference if the attack took place on private property as opposed to public property? Just for my own information.
Through you, Chair, thank you. My understanding is, in regards to provocation, one of the levels that the investigating officer would take into account with provocation is if it happened on the dog's own property, then there could be a view of a threat to the incoming dog, but in this case, it did not take place on private property. It took place on public property.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Russell. There being no further discussion, I have a motion moved by Councillor Timmers that committee receive and file report PD 39-24 regarding a review of muzzle order appeal by John Fichtinger, and that committee recommend to council that the muzzle order issue on June 27, 2024 be confirmed and upheld. I will now ask our legislative committee coordinator to open the vote.
Thank you, Chair. That vote is now open. And the vote is closed, and that carries. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, Deanna. So we will now consider item 7.2.2, delegation of authority with respect to the muzzle order appeals, PD 40-24. Do members of committee have any questions to Mr. Barkway? Vice Chair Murray, go ahead, please.
Thank you very much, Chair. Through you to Mr. Barkway. The committee that's being recommended, can you clarify? I recognize it's Director of Planning, yourself, or your delegate. And then can you give me an idea of where else you would be drawing from for that third member? Would it be from the same department, or would it be somewhere else?
Through you, Chair, thank you for the question. The third full-time staff member would be another member from any of the departments within the town, preferably not from municipal law enforcement.
Thank you very much. In my opinion, I also would prefer that it not be from the same department. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, Vice Chair Murray. So there being no further Mayor Easton.
Mr. Chairman, I just had a quick look to see when the reference document had been last updated. It was 2018. And so the question that I would have, just for the protection of anyone who's going to be sitting on as a tribunal, that they have the most up-to-date information, and also I would say potentially some investigation into the ethics of actions, which aren't included in the current bylaw. So through you to Mr. Barkway, is that a direction that municipalities are going, or do they basically just work with whatever is the order of the day? Because 4 years I mean, I say this, I know full well that bylaws are not always up to date, but is it common for a bylaw such as this, which in a very dynamic environment, to be 4 years old? And should we update it before the committee begins?
Through you, Chair. Thank you, Madam Mayor. I would say that it is common that the animal control bylaws are ones that are not updated frequently, but it would be one that could be reviewed and compared against neighboring municipalities to see what is the most up-to-date, especially with the provincial animal welfare coming into account, and any other major instances that would play on the bylaw itself. But as it stands right now, it is fairly up-to-date when in comparison with other local municipalities.
Okay, and through you, Mr. Chairman, when, if that were done, when you do that review, even though the task of the tribunal is being potentially delegated, that does not remove the right and the responsibility of council to approve any updates to the bylaw. Would that be correct?
Through you, Chair, yes, that is correct.
Okay, that's great. Thanks, Mr. Chairman.
Thanks, Your Worship. Councillor McCulloch.
Thank you very much. Through you to Mr. Barkway, just trying to get an idea of the appeal process and the removal of a muzzle order, let's say a year, 2, 3 from now. What does that look like? This would be the committee that we're delegating this to that would review that case? And what sort of experience would be required by members of that committee to have some sort of expertise with animals?
Through you, Chair, thank you for the question. I don't believe that there's a requirement to have an expertise with animals, but there would be a requirement to have an understanding of the animal control bylaw and the responsibilities of the tribunal itself in regards to hearing an appeal.
Okay, just for clarification, so the onus would be on the animal owner, the dog owner, to provide evidence to say that this dog no longer requires that muzzle order, or is it for life?
Through you, Chair, the muzzle order remains on the dog for life unless through a review and appeal it's rescinded. The onus is on the appellant to provide information to contradict the issued muzzle order. It's not on the onus of the tribunal, or in this case, committee of the whole or council, to provide that evidence. It's up to the appellant to provide the appropriate evidence.
And that's just to back up a bit, that's where I'm kind of coming with this question is, do we have the experience to make that decision as to whether or not a dog is a danger to society anymore?
Councillor McCulloch, we're not discussing these merits right now. What we're doing
Okay.
is we're discussing,
We're delegating the
we're
authority.
delegating the authority
Correct.
to staff to do this. So,
Okay,
yeah, that's where we are right now. And Councillor Brunei had asked that question earlier.
yeah, okay.
Okay? Thank you. So, there being no further discussion, I have a motion moved by Councillor Renchema. That committee receive and file report PD 40-24 regarding the delegation of authority muzzle order appeals, and that committee recommend to council to delegate the authority and responsibility of dealing with appeals to the Director of Planning and Development, or designate, and create an appeal tribunal consisting of the Director, Manager of Municipal Law Enforcement, or delegate, and one additional full-time staff member to render decisions on muzzle order appeals, and that the delegated authority bylaw 2022-75 be upheld to include the authority and responsibility to delegate muzzle order appeals. I will now ask our legislative committee coordinator to open the vote.
Thank you, Chair. That vote is open. And the vote is now closed, and that carries. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, Deanna. We will now consider item 7.2.3, amendment to the Town Development Charges Bylaw, Bill 185 PD 43-20 or -24. Director of Planning and Development will provide introductory comments. Mr. Bruder, please go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just wanted to provide a little bit of context ahead of this report. So to kind of give a fulsome picture, I'll I'll go back a little bit, back in time where prior to Bill 23, which as we know came in place a couple of years ago now, it was always common practice for municipalities to look at not just all the capital works, all the construction projects, the infrastructure jobs and what have you to facilitate growth, but also the studies that were required to accommodate growth. And where possible, minus a benefit to existing, of course, there was opportunities to recoup some of those costs in the development charges. And that's what was always done in development charge studies. Then Bill 23 came along, and with that, there was elimination of that opportunity and the addition of a 5-year phase-in of development charges. So kind of a doubly impact, I don't even know if that's a word. But anyway, 2 impacts to the municipalities in terms of not being able to recoup the growth studies and then having to deal with a 5-year phase-in. That was met with quite a bit of input from many municipalities across the province. Kind of it seems to be a little bit of a fluid and dynamic situation because the province, all during this time, had been very fluid with their release of new changes to legislation, and one of which was then Bill 185, was brought into place in June of this year, and it essentially reversed both of those things. So eliminated a 5-year phase-in that was previously required, and then reintroduced the ability for municipalities to add growth-related studies back into a development charges study. And with that came a 6-month period for municipalities to do that, more as part of a housekeeping amendment and going back to the way things were, considered more of a minor amendment to the development charge bylaws for a municipality. And because otherwise, if you get past the 6-month period, then that's when you get into needing a full-blown study to reevaluate and incorporate these changes. So ahead of that, the province gave some opportunity for some housekeeping items. What it boils down to for us, again, when you look at what the increases are as a result of the growth studies, about a 2 to 2.4% impact to the development charges. So we're talking a fairly minor amount. And that reintroduces for a 10-year time period the studies that we foresee being requirement to accommodate and strategically plan for growth. So that's what you have before you here this evening. Again, fairly minor and a reintroduction of things that were previously implemented. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Bruder. Do members of committee have any questions? I see none. I do have one, Matt, to you, just because it came up today on my travels. Did we reach out, and I know it's a minor change, but, you know, I hear the comments on the radio when I'm driving that, you know, municipalities are responsible for the lagging of new development. And it infuriates me every time because, you know, we pass these projects and then they don't get started for one way, shape, or another. Did we reach out to the community, the building community, and say, hey, this is coming, even though it's minor, but it is a change?
Mr. Chair, we didn't, just by virtue of the way the legislation worked and some of the timelines associated with us. That said, we have had some conversations with some members of the development community. I know our CAO has as well. And again, once, you know, it was kind of identified or confirmed what the magnitude was, I think there was a pretty good understanding in terms of the why and, you know, the expectations that we're going back to how we previously used to do things. This isn't a brand new and radical change. So, we didn't go out with a widespread notification, but we have had those conversations since, and we have talked to a few, and there doesn't seem to be any lingering issues resulting from this.
Okay, just, could I ask, like, so if we approve this in a committee, it also has to come before council to be ratified, so then it doesn't be, you know, it becomes part of the record, part of the public record going forward. Over that time period in between now and then, could I ask that between you and Mr. Kirkopoulos, we go out and we make sure that we smooth the waters with our development community to say, hey, this is coming, and we don't want any, you know, undue nuances, or we don't want to be, you know, I myself feel that we don't want to be the holder, I'm going to use the holder-upper, again, if that's a word. I think it is, the holder-upper. It's not, thank you, VC, of development, right? Just to remove all of those impediments that potentially are out there, whether real or not?
Yeah, Mr. Chair, I mean, we often have ongoing dialogue with many members of the development community anyway, so this will be something that we'll continue to convey, absolutely.
Okay, appreciate that. Okay, so there being no further discussion, I have a motion moved by Councilor Brunet that committee recommend to council the approval of the amendments to the following development charges bylaws: 2024-28, 2024-29, 2024-30, 2024-31, 2024-32, 2024-33, 2024-34, and 2024-35, and to remove the mandatory 5-year face-in of development charges and to recover costs of growth studies in accordance with Bill 185, Cutting Red Tape to Build More Homes Act 2024. I will now ask our Legislative Committee Coordinator to open the vote.
Thank you, Chair. That vote is now open. And the vote is now closed, and that carries. Thank you.
Okay, Deanna, thank you very much. As there are no further reports for the Planning and Economic Development Committee agenda this evening, I will now ask our Legislative Committee Coordinator to transition to our next committee agenda. And I just want to say, Deanna, first night, good job. Proud of you.
Thank you, Chair. I'll be moving the gavel to Councillor and Chair Tony Brunet to assume the chair at this time for the Community Services and Infrastructure Committee agenda.
Thank you. We will now begin the Community Services and Infrastructure Committee agenda. Delegations, we have no delegations this evening. 8.2 reports, we will now consider Report PW-08-24, the Public Works Update, Q3 2024, and the Director of Public Works will provide introductory comments. Director Graham, please go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The Public Works Update report before committee this evening is just for informational purposes. There's no decisions of council being requested this evening. The reporting timeline represents Q3 of 2024, and the intent of the report is to provide updates on capital programs, projects, and operational programs. And as well, we also like to include updates on a lot of significant regional capital projects within our community, so that's included in the report as well. I'd also like to take this opportunity to thank the Public Works staff and the project management team for all of their hard work over the past quarter in helping to support this work plan for the community that's been summarized in this report tonight. So with that, if anyone has any questions, both myself and Walter Neubauer, Manager of Capital Projects, are here this evening to answer any questions committee may have. Thank you.
Thank you, Director. Do members of the committee have any questions? Councillor Timmers, please go ahead.
Thank you very much, Chair. Through you to Director Graham. So just a quick question around the Gavora municipal ditch, municipal drain, sorry. I know I should talk this way. I want to look at you when I'm talking. So I know there was some additional work that had to happen on Camden Road at the very end of the Gavora ditch. I'm just wondering if that is now completed?
Through Mr. Chair to the councillor, thanks for the question. I believe most of it's completed, but let me circle back and just confirm that. But I believe the bulk of it is completed unless there's some minor restoration work to occur. But it should all be completed for the most part at that location.
Okay, very good. I'd had a question around it, so I just wanted to clarify that with you tonight, so thank you. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor. Mayor Easton, please go ahead.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. Through you to Mr. Graham, page 132 of the report, or page 26 of the booklet, on the town investment and the Q3 highlights. I quite like this. I thought it was a nice capsule of what had gone on, and I was wondering, Mr. Chairman, if there are actually, were there targets set? And this is obviously the outcome, but were there targets set for a number of these? For example, is it 3,475 kilometers of road that we have as part of the survey, or is that only the rural roads?
Director Graham?
Through you, Mr. Chair, to Madam Mayor, and thank you for the question. I would say, like, some of these were trending and others are targets in terms of, for the example that you brought forward on the number of roads inspected. So that would be a target, but it is also regulated, so we have to inspect our roads, so many roads on a timeframe to confirm to the minimum maintenance standards. So what that is we're out patrolling our roads, documenting any defects, the condition of those roads. So in that particular one that you've highlighted, that is the target we would want to do so that we can stay in compliance with the minimum maintenance standards.
Okay, Mr. Chairman, it just, as always, more information you get, the more you want. And so, what relationship do these numbers have to the calculation of the workload that's related to them? For example, is there a standard around the amount of time that it would take to install a sign? Or is there a general standard related to the repair of a main break? Through you to Mr. Graham.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Director Graham?
Through you, Mr. Chair, to Madam Mayor, and thank you for those questions. So some of these, there would be a standard. We do have our standard operational procedures and policies that we do follow. So we do have certain timelines, et cetera, for certain work, if you will. And then other times it might just be, you know, this one particular quarter or month, we've experienced more demand in a certain area. But in terms of the signs, I'd say that's a good number. Like, we're trying to trend this data a lot more now and sort of look at how we're doing along the way. But, you know, that's quite a few signs to put up in a quarter when we're reporting on a quarter, in comparison to the other work we're doing in the department as well. So I'd say that number there that we're reporting on is a good number, but we are trending it, and we'll be providing more trends as we move forward on that. In terms of the water main break example, those can vary depending on how bad the break is in terms of how long they may take to fix. But we do have in our DWQMS a standard operating procedure that we do follow to do water main repairs. We only have one water main break, knock on wood, in this quarter, so I mean that's a really good statistic over 3 months. And it kind of aligns with what we normally see. And again, it's a testament to council's investment in the water main infrastructure, that we don't have a lot of breaks that we're seeing here that we're reporting on.
Okay, well, that's very helpful. I certainly would encourage this. This is a good page, Mr. Chairman. Every time I look at this report and I realize that, you know, our Chief Financial Officer will tell us that when projects are done, it takes several months before you get all the paperwork in. And so I'm wondering, Mr. Chairman, what we would consider to be a reasonable time that we could actually assign some of the final numbers to these projects. I think members of the public would actually find that quite interesting. But I don't know how realistic it is, because I know those delays can be quite extensive. So I'm not sure who you want to direct. I'll leave that with you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you.
I'm not sure, Director Graham, if you wanted to tackle that, or if there's someone from the Communications Department or one of your staff, but I think it's an interesting question.
Through you, Chair, to the Mayor. It's true. This is something I hear about a lot over the years, that there is a time lag. So from the Public Works perspective, the project is finished, but we're waiting for all the final invoices to come through, all the final paperwork. So there is typically, like, I would say it would take up to about 3 months before we would have final numbers from when they finish everything, where we could report and start to close things off. So we do provide our quarterly council reports, but for example, our Q2 report is coming forward this evening, while Public Works is reporting on Q3. So that type of timing difference is pretty typical for us, unfortunately.
So just on that point, for more clarification, Mr. Chairman, how reasonable, through you to the Chief Financial Officer, or possibly even CAO, how reasonable would it be for us to begin to provide that information, even if it were a matter of isolating some of the bigger projects?
Mr. CAO?
Through you, Mr. Chair, why don't I start, and then I think Charlotte and/or Dave can potentially jump in. I don't think it's hard, it's just a matter of timing. I think in a lot of ways we do that when we do report early in the new year, and when we do a culmination of what's happened, and sometimes we're doing that in different ways in terms of updates on our strategic plan and the projects contained there within. But we can definitely see if we can align those better and come up with something for council that I think tells you or shares with you that information. Similarly, maybe on the question before, we are looking at more of a dashboard type approach on a lot of things. And I think we can do a better job maybe clarifying targets versus trends and explaining those to members of council as well. When we use targets, when we use trends, and again, maybe set for you some of the standards that we have for these things. There isn't typical standards for the two examples you used, but there are guidelines that we follow through various associations. So thank you for those comments and suggestions, and I think we'll maybe share some things as we start to develop them and make sure we're hitting the right point with you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Mr. CEO. Madam Mayor, does that?
Yeah, I mean, this is a great report, always. I mean, it's so wholesome and fulsome in terms of the information as it progresses throughout the year. And so I think those are good ideas, targets and trends. I would certainly be happy to see that. And it might round out the whole story for members of the public as well. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Councillor Patriva, please go ahead.
Yeah, thank you, Chair Brunei, and thank you, staff, for this report. I'm going to focus on the Ward 2 projects that are near and dear to my heart. So first off, I want to thank staff, Mr. Graham, Mr. Neubauer, Mr. Andrea, for the fabulous job on Durham Road. For residents or council members that haven't taken it, I would suggest you have a drive down it, because it is 1,000,000 times better. And it's a quick and easy access to the QEW. So again, people that are complaining about the construction on Ontario Street, this is now open. So I would suggest you take that route. And again, I want to say to staff, give them kudos, because there was a few issues that came up, and they were quick to address them with our property owners on that street. So having said that, our next project in line was Lincoln Avenue. And I see that we've got here project schedule and start date to be determined. Any update on that, either Mr. Graham or Mr. Newbauer for us?
Through Mr. Chair, and thanks, Councillor, for your question. So in terms of Lincoln Avenue, we are going to be issuing communication shortly. I know Walter's team's working on that. And also, trying to finalize with the contractor their final schedule, but we can anticipate, the contractor would like to be starting beginning of next year in the wintertime. So that's when we'll see activity out there, but we'll be getting more communication out shortly on that.
Okay, terrific. And through you, Chair Bernay, question number 2?
Please go ahead.
Okay, awesome. And again, you know what, Director Graham, I want to thank you for your quick turnaround on the Remembrance Day crosswalk. Deputy Mayor Timmers and myself talked about it this morning. Residents reached out, I had flipped your emails, and you made something come to life in a very short term. So Project 13, the William Street Neighborhood Reconstruction Project, in our correspondence, that's going to be part of that project going forward. Did you just want to, what's the word? Oh God, I'm at a loss for words. I'm going to talk about that, Director Graham.
Through Mr. Chair, to the councillor, and thanks, councillor, for your comments on the Remembrance Day crosswalk. The staff really worked hard on that. Walter's team and Diane sitting here this evening and a bunch of other staff. So, yeah, it was a team effort for sure to get that in place. And in terms of William Street, so it's going through the detailed design currently, and I think your question was related to perhaps a Remembrance Day crosswalk there, Councillor? Yeah, okay, so that's definitely something we do want to do. So as part of that project and part of that design work, we do want to look at doing opportunities for further crosswalks at that location with the cenotaph right there as well, and that's something we are planning for.
Okay, terrific. And the last one, Chair Bernay, I'm going to leave Project 11 for you because I don't want to take them all. So, Director Graham, project number 16, street light condition assessment. So we've talked about this. We upgraded all of our street lights from the incandescent bulbs to the LEDs, and we still need to do the decorative street lights. And with the time change, it getting dark early, we notice those that go out quicker. So where are we on this timeline? Like, is this something that's going to come forward in next year's budget? Because I don't remember seeing it in the 10-year capital plan. So just looking for that, because unfortunately, it takes a while for these to get repaired because we want a number of them to be done, right, for, I guess, a value proposition. So just want to get your thoughts on that.
Through Mr. Chair to the councillor. So with this particular project, we are doing a condition assessment of our decorative street lights that are high-pressure sodium. We would like to look at upgrading those to LED for a number of reasons. Efficiency probably being the most important for our energy savings. So what's going to come out of this, we're going to look at sort of the whole business case of, if we upgrade the lights, there's a cost to that. They are expensive because they're a decorative fixture. And what would be the payback time on energy savings, et cetera, et cetera. We also want to look at those that are in the worst condition versus some of the other ones that may not be as bad. So basically develop a program, some options that we can report back to council and look at a way forward in terms of maybe phasing some of this work in. So it's not included in the 2025 budget in terms of any work happening. We will be reporting back to council next year after this assessment is done and kind of sharing some of those options and findings for further discussion.
Okay, terrific. Thank you, Director Graham. Thank you, Chair Bernay.
Thank you, Councillor Pachariva. Councillor Rangerma.
Thank you, Chair Brunei. My question is about on page 21 of the hard copy report. And this is the Niagara Region Project, King Street, from Green Lane, Lincoln Avenue to Green Lane. Bullet number 2 in the first column says that there's a focus on improved intersection safety at 30 Road and Mountain View Road. Can you tell us a little bit about what we know about that and what it looks like?
Through Mr. Chair, to the councillor, and thank you for the question. I'm going to make a few comments. I don't know if Walter might have a little more detail to share, but, so this being King Street at 30 Road, so the intersection there is not a great intersection currently for visibility and sightlines, so the region is going to improve that, which involves some realignment of that intersection to make it have better sightlines, and also look at traffic lights there for turning movements, for safer turning movements. And then at the Mountain View Road intersection, which is another intersection that we want to see improved, and council has been bringing that forward as well to the region for visibility, because it is on a bit of a skew alignment. So the region's looking to do what they can there in terms of making that intersection better than it is today, in terms of some flashing lights, looking at some minor realignment adjustments to what they can work with, and also making sure there's clear visibility sight lines as well.
Okay, so when you say realignment, you said minor realignment for Mountain View and some potential realignment at 30 Road. Does that involve the purchasing of any property, any abutting lands? Do you know?
Through Mr. Chairman, my understanding it doesn't, no. They're going to work with the property that they currently have, the road allowance property.
Okay. All right, that was my question. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Michalak.
Thank you very much. Through you to Dave Graham. So on page 21 on the Niagara Regional Projects, moving down the street, Project 1, King Street, Vineland, the progress, it says detailed design is ongoing and expected to be completed in 2023. I'm thinking that is a mistype. And then in the next column, public engagement and stakeholder consultation in 2025. So when will the region be managing those discussions or managing that? And would we have any input, or would we have any consultations of our own with stakeholders or residents?
Through you, Chair, to the councillor, thanks for the question. Yes, that is a typo. We're expecting detailed design to be completed next year. It's very far along at this point. We're finalizing those plans. As for engagement, we have been in communication with the region, and they are planning to do engagement with the public, with council next year. I don't have a timeline. I would expect it to be fairly early. We're also working internally, looking at streetscaping plans. We're going to be meeting about that tomorrow, actually, to talk about those types of things. So there's lots of little details that we want to sort out before we go to the public, and I don't want to commit to a date today since it is a region initiative, but we are heavily involved.
Fair enough. I appreciate the effort that's being made. And then Project 23, Red Maple storm sewer, in the next steps, Jordan Station reconstruction project to commence 2029. Do we have a timeline as far as what that looks like, as far as consultation, detailed design? How long does this typically take?
Through you, Chair, to the councillor. The detailed design for Red Maple, the ultimate urbanization of Red Maple and the surrounding streets, is completed. It's been completed for a couple of years, and we did the storm sewer in advance to support development. But it will be some time before we actually construct, so our team would naturally go back out to the public, share the design, talk about what issues they may have with that design, and we would plan probably in 2028 or 2027 to engage with them and modify the design as we need to, as it would probably be, almost 10 years since it was completed.
Okay, and just to clarify, when we say Jordan Station reconstruction, what does that include?
It includes Bridgeport Drive, Queen Victoria, and Red Maple.
Okay, thank you. Perfect.
Thank you, Councillor. I'm wondering if the Vice Chair could take control of the chair so I could just ask a few questions. Thank you, Vice Chair. So, Councillor Patry would put it on a T, so I'm going to ask the question with regards to Aberdeen and Hillside. As Chair and as a ward councillor, I have been kept abreast by Gemma and Walter and the staff, but under the definition of some projects go really, really well, and some projects are more problematic. I'm just wondering if we might be able to get, just for the greater community, I know that communications are always going out to the residents of Aberdeen and Hillside, but because of where the project is, a lot of people going back and forth to Albright Manor and such, I'm wondering if we could just kind of give a brief overview of the project, where we are, and what needs to be completed to bring it to the finish line.
Through you, Chair, to the Councillor, thank you for your question. Yes, this project has definitely had some challenges, primarily around utility relocations, which has delayed the overall progress of construction, and we've had to make some adjustments. For this year, to minimize the disruption to the public, we are hoping to have fully completed, with the exception of some restoration and top coat asphalt, Hillside Drive and Aberdeen up to where the road is currently closed at the intersection of those two roads. And the intersection was planned to be reconstructed in the spring. We've been working with the contractor. We feel like those are realistic targets at this point. We're not going to close the door if we get favorable weather. The contractor has expressed interest in continuing to work as much as they can in that intersection to limit the disruption next year. But at this point, that is where we're at and what our plan is.
Vice Chair, if I could ask an additional question?
Yeah, absolutely. Go ahead.
So, we've had a lot of projects that have been underway in 2024, and a lot of them are going to continue and carry over, specifically Ontario Street, and then we're going to have new projects starting, Highway 8 from Mountain View to the roundabout, Lincoln Avenue, and so, we'll have multiple contracts occurring at the same time. I'm just wondering, I think our communications has been very good to business owners on Ontario Street, but I'm just wondering if there's any takeaways from 2024 that, we have learnt and that we'll continue to make sure that we make sure that any delays, as all these construction projects are going at the same time, happen in 2025, 2026. I'm just wondering if you have any comments with regards to that.
Through you, Chair, to the Councillor. For sure, we're always learning. There's been some very big projects throughout the community, for sure, in 2024. I feel for the most part they're progressing quite well, and we expect that the work that is going into 2025 should be fairly minimal and should be completed within Q1 or early Q2, depending on the weather, which is good timing as new projects in 2025 start. But for sure, there's a lot of construction happening in 2025, and there's going to be disruptions and delays in the community. And I think we just need to continue to communicate, and probably communicate more frequently and in different ways to the community, so that they're aware of those disruptions and delays and they can plan their day.
Thank you, Walter. I believe our CAO has some further comments.
Through you, Vice Chair. to the chair. I think the one thing I was going to add, and I know Walter and I have been chatting about this, but when you have regional projects and municipal projects, sometimes there's that communication that I think happens on the ground, but sometimes to residents and businesses. And I know on Ontario Street, Walter and I were out on the street with Gemma and Dave Graham and Paul Deaney and a number of others, because sometimes that regional interface, local interfaces, and business interface always doesn't happen maybe as quickly or as efficiently as we'd all like. So I think definitely a learning for us maybe to be on the ground. We are on the ground a lot, but not always letting others control the communication. I think sometimes we should be controlling our own communication, even though they aren't our own projects. And I think we learned that by doing a few things, by talking to business owners, and I think just demonstrating our support for them, just being in their businesses, talking to them, engaging with them, buying a few more things from them if we're talking to businesses. But I think the same thing applies with residents as well.
Thank you, Vice Chair Mikulik. Appreciate the opportunity. And just to reiterate, I think we all look forward to getting these public work updates, and I know there's a lot of work that goes involved in making them work, so I do appreciate committee's questions, and I'm sure staff do as well. So thank you very much. So there being no further discussion, I have a motion moved by Councillor Pachariva that committee receive and file report PW-0824 regarding the Public Works Update Q3 2024 attached as Appendix A. And I will now ask our Legislative Committee Coordinator to open the vote.
Thank you, Chair. That vote is now open. That vote is now closed, and that carries. Thank you.
As there are no further reports for the Community Services and Infrastructure Committee agenda, I will ask the Legislative Committee Coordinator to transition to our next committee agenda.
Thank you, Chair Brunei. I will be moving the gavel to Councillor and Chair Lynn Timmers to assume the chair at this time for the General Business and Finance Committee agenda.
Thank you very much. We will now begin the General Business and Finance Committee agenda. We have no delegations. Under reports, we will now consider Report FN 1524 2024 Q2 Operating and Capital Financial Reports. Do members of committee have any questions? Councillor Mikulik.
Very much. Through you to our Director of Finance.
Oh, she got it.
Thank you, sorry.
Go ahead, Councillor. Sorry, I forgot to put your mic on.
Not a problem. Through you to our Director of Finance. So when when I read this report and I look at that number, that 86,503 unexpended amounts carried forward from prior budgets, strikes me as a large number. Is that a typical number for a municipality of our size? Is that?
Okay, Councillor, can you just direct us to where you're looking at in the report? What page?
I'm looking at last paragraph, basically.
In the report itself.
Page 2. It's 2024 Q2 Capital Project Financial Report, Appendix B.
Okay. Go ahead, Charlotte.
Through you, Chair, to the councillor. it would be difficult in some ways to answer how we compare to different municipalities because the situation in each municipality is different at a given point in time. So I think what you're seeing there is a reflection of some of the larger projects that we have going on. For example, we know we have the Prudham's water main. That's a larger project which we just got a new grant for, which is very exciting. We have the West Lincoln Memorial Hospital contribution on that list. So I think, how it compares to other municipalities, it would be hard to say. Are they contributing to a hospital? Do they have a large development that's coming in? That would determine it. But I would say this is a time of growth for sure for the town of Lincoln. There's a lot that's happening, a lot that's on the go, and you're seeing that reflected in the report.
Okay, thank you. And just a clarification in that same section, 4.2839 million, or 5%. Is that 5% of that 86,500,000?
Through you, Chair, to the councillor, yes. It's 5% of the total budget and carry forward amount. And so what you're seeing there is this report is as of June of 2024, and we do tend to see a lot of construction activity picking up later in the year. So in part, you're seeing how it tends to be a little bit slower earlier in the year. And then similarly with projects like the hospital contribution, that won't occur until fiscal 2025. So you're seeing a reflection of some of those things. It'll still show, that those amounts unspent until we actually pay them out.
Okay, thank you. And then just one last question, if I may, my third one. What are we anticipating that 5% number to be at the end of Q4? Or what percent? Like what number, 4.2, would it be 8, would it be 10, 12, 15? What would those two numbers correlate?
Through you, Chair, to the councillor, I have not looked at that level to project where it's going to be at. We do work on our cash flow forecasting, and we are meeting quarterly with Public Works to look over their capital projects with them. We'll be meeting soon to look at where things will wind up for the end of the year, but I wouldn't be able to answer that for you at this time.
Okay, just, permission to ask one more question?
Okay, one more.
I see nobody in the queue. Do we have an anticipated number that's budgeted for that?
Charlotte.
Through you, Chair, the total number is the budget number. So that full 86.5 million is the amount that council has approved for staff to spend on those particular projects over time. We know that there's been some projects that are delayed. Some of them we've had conversations about, even in our budget meetings. Some of them are just starting up. So I probably could have an update on that for you with the Q3 report and try to give you a better idea of where we'll wind up towards the end of the year. But these types of things are continuously shifting and changing. And there is a little bit, especially in the capital area, that's a little bit hard to predict at times.
No, and I'm asking that, I think you touched on, just from a cash flow perspective, that we're cash flow appropriate. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, councillor. I'm not seeing anyone else in the queue. There being no further discussion, I have a motion moved by councillor Russell. The committee receive and file report FN 1524 regarding the 2024 Q2 operating and capital financial reports and approve the recommendations as presented in Appendix B. I'll now ask our legislative committee coordinator to please open the vote.
Thank you, Chair. That vote is now open. And that vote is closed, and that carries. Thank you.
Thank you very much. We will now consider report FN 1724, the auditor appointment. Do members of committee have any questions? Councillor Bernay, please go ahead.
Thank you, Chair. Through you to Charlotte. I'm just wondering if the Director of Finance could tell us when the last time we went out for an RFP for auditors was.
Thank you. Through to you, Charlotte.
Through you, Chair, to the Councillor. Under the Municipal Act, the maximum a municipality can appoint an auditor is for a 5-year term. So the last time that we went out for procurement was for the 5 years ended December 31st, 2023. So I think it would have been 2018 or 2019, somewhere in there.
Okay, thank you. Also in the report, through you, Madam Chair, to Charlotte, I see that there will be a staffing time requirement. I'm just wondering if that can be, I realize it's maybe looking in the hourglass, but, any idea if staff, obviously are looking to make a recommendation to bring an auditor on board that hasn't been working for the town in the previous year, and there's going to be some staffing requirements. The estimated staffing time that equals dollars, if we've crunched that number. In other words, is it 5 hours a month for 3 months, or is it 10 hours a month for 12 months? I'm wondering if the director could comment on that.
Thank you. Through to Charlotte, please go ahead.
Through you, Chair, to the Councillor. I would say, I don't have an exact number of hours, but what we anticipate is that it will take a bit more time in the first year because you do have to help them become familiarized with your systems, your internal controls, the things that are unique to your municipality, but then we anticipate that we would have savings in years 2 through 5 that would more than make up for that.
Okay, thank you very much. And just a final comment, not a question, Madam Chair.
Go ahead.
So Charlotte, through you and Kate, I really appreciate this work. I've been fairly vocal over the last couple of terms that I believe that shaking up the Smarties box is wise and prudent. I think having people look at things from a different perspective, different voices, different faces, whether it be auditors, whether it be consultants, or whether it be lawyers, is very healthy. So for that, I thank you for bringing this RFP forward. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Councillor. Next up, we have Mayor Easton.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. 2 questions. I hear this terminology used sometimes when the subject of auditors comes up, and that's around how the large firms that do municipal work don't really want to do municipal work anymore because it's considered a small job. I don't know whether it's because there really isn't very much money in it. I don't know whether what I'm hearing isn't correct. But I guess the bottom line is, how many firms could we expect to compete when it goes out to RFP?
Go ahead, Charlotte.
Through you, Chair, to the Councillor, I would say in my career, I've seen a few more than that on occasion. I do think that, if I can say that, I think what I'm hearing is a lot of firms are very busy. And so that can affect how many firms you do have quoting on a project. So I've seen a few more, I've seen a few less. I think, it depends also on the timing, how busy they are with their workload at that particular time. So I bet that's about as much as I could contribute on that front.
Okay, it's not really consistent with some boards that I sit on, but I think it's always definitely worth talking about. I guess the only other comment that I would make is, what could we do? What circumstances could we maneuver in order to make it an appealing? I think coming here, and I've certainly heard this, the auditors have not been, they don't hold back. They find that they're very well supported, information is readily available, and they move forward. So I would just say beyond the cooperative level, what else can we do that might attract a different cohort?
Through you, Chair, to the Mayor. That's an interesting question because to be honest, I'm not sure exactly what a firm would be looking for. But I do think that the reflection of the takers on the request for proposal is an indication that, the town does have strong systems of internal control. We have a lot of processes and procedures. And I do think that helps. That certainly helps in terms of firms having a sense that they would come in and be able to do the audit in an efficient manner. So I would say from our perspective in finance, that's what we try to do, is just to make sure that we're doing everything we need to do. All of the documentation is in place, all of the processes are in place, and so then that helps it run more smoothly for both sides.
Yeah, that's very helpful. I mean, it's always been my impression that they're very thorough and they know where to look for trouble. They're never successful, which is very good news, but that's helpful. But it is my understanding that the group is smaller than it used to be. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mary Stin. There being no further discussion, I have a motion moved by Councillor Murray that committee receive and file report FN 1724 regarding the auditor appointment, and that committee approve the appointment of Deloitte LLP as external auditor for the Corporation of the Town of Lincoln for a period of 5 years, subject to provision of satisfactory services. I will now ask our Legislative Committee Coordinator to open the vote.
Thank you, Chair. That vote is now open. The vote is now closed, and that carries. Thank you.
Thank you very much. We have no confidential items. Do we have any committee remarks? Councillor Pachariva, go ahead.
Yeah, thank you, through you, Chair Timmers. I got an email last week and continue to get these sporadically, but with new residents moving in, the issue of the property tax that they paid to the developer not being applied to our tax bill. So wondering how we can rectify this going forward, and through either Mr. Karkopoulos or Mr. Bruder, do we have a contact at Lozani that these residents can reach out to? Because when they call the customer service line, they don't get a lot of customer service or satisfaction. So looking for a little help from our end, because you both have a very strong relationship and wealth of knowledge and some context, so looking for some guidance through you, both.
Okay, so Matt, you're up first. Okay, go ahead. I see you both nodding, so.
Yeah, through you, Madam Chair. I think, I definitely have some contacts. I mean, we do have some dialogue going on with that particular developer. We have development currently in the works now, so definitely an opportunity to raise this particular issue and see what can be done. I'm not aware of anything off the top of my head, but I do have some contacts I can definitely reach out to, but I defer to our CAO for any further comment.
Go ahead. Go ahead, Mike.
Through your chair to the councillor, I mean, we can definitely try to ascertain a little bit in terms of what's going on and why those taxes aren't being applied, or if it's just it's an estimate at first and then there's a gap in that estimate versus what's actually being charged. But let us figure it out. We can then get in touch with their land development side and figure out how to address this particular issue.
Okay, through you, Chair Timmers. No, thank you very much, because this happened, Councilor Bruni and I both received emails about this during the first phase of this development, and it continues to happen. I mean, this has gone on for a number of years, so we gotta put a bow on this and make sure that this money gets transferred from the developer in a timely fashion to not impact our residents, our new coming residents, with outrageous bills that they weren't expecting. So thank you, Chair Timmers.
Okay, thank you, Counselor. Put my glasses back on so I can read the last. There being no further business, I call this meeting adjourned at 7:20 PM. Thank you,